Hello everyone, welcome to a very special Dragon Plus live stream. We are recording this on Thursday to be airing tomorrow on Friday. Welcome back, Jeremy Crawford.
Hello everyone.
We have literally pulled Jeremy away from his desk. You were fighting to stay there.
I was like, no, you can't make me go on camera.
So to give a little preface, a little context, we have been working on an adventure for D&D Extra Life. This will be available on the DMs Guild. During the week, I think what's going to happen is Chris Perkins is actually playing through some of the adventure at Gamehole Con on November 10th, I believe. So we don't want to drop it too early because we don't want it to be out in the public and make it too spoilery necessarily. But we'll definitely be debuting it in the DMs Guild on or around then. As part of it, and we've mentioned it before, this is an alternate expedition to the Barrier Peaks. Not a recreation, but an alternate adventure set in. But we would be remiss not to include the original famed suit of powered armor. Jeremy and myself have been working on the originally written version, but we want to make sure that it goes through some extra design. And Jeremy has kindly donated his time and effort to the Extra Life cause by making sure this thing is shipshape. So this is my original version and all of the markups that we've been working on so far, including lunch remains and other notes that I'm not even sure what some of this was in reference to. This actually this is a preview of the adventure. This means something. This is part of it.
So it looks to me like there's a chasm.
Yes.
With floating stones that you have to hop on to get across the chasm.
Oh, you're so close.
With, on the other side of the chasm, a floating gelatinous cube with prehensile arms of some kind. Maybe Dr. Octopus style. They are.
I will tweet this after we release it, and I'll let you know after the adventure hits the DMs Guild how close you are.
All right. But see, now I want the floating gelatinous cube with the Dr. Octopus style arms.
There is, you know what? I'll give you this. There is a gelatinous cube of sorts in the adventure. There are Dr. Octopus-like arms of sorts in the adventure.
All right.
There are floating things of sorts that must get crossed in the adventure. But in any case, we were pretty close. Jeremy has done a good job of thoughtfully and diligently correcting my original work. In past broadcasts, we've gotten through most of the language. My homework assignment for this time was to sort of rewrite the description of the powered armor. So this is the version that I had sent your way. We wanted to do, I believe at this point, what we wanted to do was take a final pass at things, see if the language looks good, see if the maths look good as well.
Yes, we promised to math it up.
Yes. So I'll give a quick summary, and then we can dive in and see what we want to raise a flag about along the way. The description we generally kept the same. We did drop that the armor always stands upright, but the description from the original book we wanted to keep for fidelity to the original. Now the second paragraph is where we sort of restructure the armor's general capabilities. While wearing this armor, you gain a +1 bonus to AC. In addition, while wearing this armor, your strength score is 18. It has no effect if your strength score is already 18 or higher. And whenever you drop to 0 hit points, the armor institutes emergency protocols such that its medical systems grant you advantage on your death saving throws. I'll pause there. Is there anything there that you would like to flag or revise immediately?
We could tighten up the wording.
Yes, on that last sentence.
Well, no, even up here it says, while wearing this armor. So here's what we could do so that we don't have to say while wearing this armor more than once.
Yes.
We could say, while wearing this armor, you gain the following benefits, : you gain, and honestly, you could then do a little bulleted list so a person could easily see you gain a +1 bonus to AC. Your strength score is 18. And then whenever you drop... and so here's the thing. You could actually cut all of that text about whenever you drop to 0 hit points. The bullet could simply say, you have advantage on death saving throws.
Gotcha. Yes.
And I often like when a magic item or something else in the game gives you a sequence of benefits that don't necessarily have an internal relationship to each other. It's kind of this disparate list of things.
Right.
I often like to give it in list format so a person can easily see each of these sort of discrete benefits, and then also they're less likely to forget them at the table.
So they won't pass over it, and it's laid out. Okay.
They won't miss that at that crucial moment when they're dying on the floor. Oh, wait a second. I'm supposed to have advantage on death saving throws.
Yes, I think we've all come across that in games where the turn after a player has a statement such as that.
Yeah.
So moving on, the armor has further capabilities that can be powered either by energy cells or your own life energy. You can use a bonus action to draw power from an energy cell or sacrifice hit points to gain one of the following benefits, which lasts until the start of your turn, and this I added last second unless stated otherwise.
Yep.
And I also added a bit of, instead of just gaining temporary hit points, explanation story-wise of what this power really is. So bullet point 1, emit force field, gain 5 plus 2d6 temporary hit points. And I wanted the 5 to immediately sort of balance out with the 5 that you're putting in there. You're doing this for an advantage, 2d6, in a way to sort of reference the 2d6 of the laser and keep it in line with the, laser weapons.
Right, right.
Anything we would modify or change there?
So since last time, and I've mentioned before that developing a piece of design for D&D involves this iteration of going back, looping through. So I've thought a little bit about how we're expressing duration, because I realize we actually have so many exceptions here that we shouldn't have this until start of your next turn up at the top. Partly because, for instance, what this literally means is you would gain these temporary hit points and then they would go away at the start of your next turn, which is not actually our intent.
You're absolutely correct. 2 out of 6 fall into this category. 4 out of 6 are exceptions.
Right. So when we have that kind of gravitational pull, that tells us we shouldn't be even saying that up front. So let's cut that. And it's funny, in our last 2 sessions, we were so focused on let's refine the different options down below, that now it helped to come back with fresh eyes. And I was like, wait a second. Most of these don't actually last until the start of your next turn.
And I'm going to throw out this general statement. This is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, was to show sort of the benefits gained by that iterative process.
Yes.
Jeremy and I have often have also spoken off camera that we want to do this beyond this particular exercise. So we would love to do this again. It seemed like the audience, the viewers, were gaining something from this, and we'll look to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so we don't need to do anything with the temporary hit points as far as donation.
You gain 5 plus 2d6 temporary hit points. By the way, a little editorial note: you're going to want a space on either side of the plus sign. So whenever you're typing out a math expression, sometimes you'll be tempted to have like 5. In this case, 5. No space, then the plus sign, then no space, 2d6. Let it breathe a little bit. Put a space on either side of the plus sign or the minus sign.
What's your take on 5 p.m.? Do you like a little space between the...
Yes, I like a space after the 5.
All right.
Yeah. Partly because that's also what's done in the Chicago Manual of Style, and that is what we always refer to for our house style.
Good to know. Oxford comma, yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay.
Yep.
We're on alignment there.
Yes, our house style and Chicago, it's all about the Oxford comma.
Activate boosters then. Gain a flying speed of 15 feet.
So I also pondered this a little bit since our last session. We can be a little more generous about this.
Okay.
let's say you gain a flying speed of 15 feet for 1 minute.
Okay.
And this lets you boost around for a bit without feeling like you have to be hyper precise in how you use this tactically. It gives you some play.
Or you might plummet to your death.
Yes, yes, yeah. But I like that we've kept it still pretty slow because that also fits in with what's going on with this armor. This armor isn't shooting around like Iron Man.
No.
It's sort of like you're floating around in little bursts.
Yes, this is extra vehicular armor where you're making repairs outside of the ship.
Exactly.
Okay, for 1 minute. Firearm mounted laser, ranged weapon attack +8 to hit, ranged 40, 120 feet, one target, hit 2d6 radiant damage. This was, again, sort of trying to refer back to parameters set about in the Dungeon Master's Guide for alien technology.
Right.
Pass?
Let's make it simpler and just give it a long range.
Okay. Drop the 40.
Drop the 40.
Boop. Dropped. Translate writing in any non-magical language within line of sight up to 1,000 words. That's a pass?
So we have the open question here now.
Yes.
Because we got rid of the duration note up front, the question is, how long am I able to do this translation?
I like for 1 minute as well.
1 minute?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's keep that then.
And in the 1,000, you're going to want a comma after the 1. There you go.
Fill the armor with up to 1 hour of air, allowing you to breathe normally in any environment.
You're good.
Okay. And this one was a revision of an original property at the beginning. Gain dark vision to a range of 60 feet for up to 1 hour.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks good.
The armor can only accept, and okay, so these were the powers and abilities to pump into with energy cells or hit points. At the bottom, we did want to include that added note that said, the armor can only accept 1 energy cell at a time. It is found with 1 energy cell attached, containing 1 to 20 charges.
I like it.
All right.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I would do is rather than saying containing 1 through 20 charges, let's do it as a die expression. And let's make it so there are at least 2 charges in it. So we'll say containing 2d10 charges.
Well, done and done. And
now, real quick, the mathing.
Yes.
And I also said that at the end of the process, we want to verify that the item's rarity is correct. So, real quick, and the math on this is easy. What I'm going to do, rather than plunge everyone into the ins and outs of the game's math, which involves a massive spreadsheet that we use to create the math for the entire game, I'm going to instead use a tool that everyone who's watching this has access to, and that's the Dungeon Master's Guide. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, we have a section on creating a magic item that is in Chapter 9 of the book, which is called the Dungeon Master's Workshop, appropriately enough. So DMs, you get to go into this workshop and make magic items. And you'll see that in this section on creating an item, we give you target power levels according to an item's rarity.
Yes.
There's a table where we tell you what the maximum spell level is that an item can have based on its rarity, and also the maximum bonus that it can have based on its rarity. We have been calling this item a legendary item. And for a legendary item, the maximum spell level is 9th level. Obviously, none of the effects currently in here are 9th level effect.
No, I imagine legendary came more about from the artificial storiness of it, of, hey, this is unique unto it's legendary, but mechanically.
But legendary, and I'll get more into the rarity at the end. Legendary can also mean an item has an accumulation of lower power effects such that it becomes very rare, or in this case, legendary. But again, we'll get back to that. let's, for now, assume legendary is correct.
Okay.
And we're going to use that to, as I say, math this baby. Now, when something is legendary, the idea is that it would have, maximum spell level is 9th, which turns out, of course, is the maximum spell level in the game.
Yes.
And typically what that also means is the item would be able to do a spell of that level once. Either you cast it once or it's always on. Like the Ring of Water Breathing is an example of an item that has a spell that's on all the time. But you'll also notice that there are many high rarity items that have lower level spell effects in them that you can do a bunch of. Many of our staffs have examples of this.
Right.
And so the powered armor is like our staffs in that it has all of these lower level effects that you can spam.
Right.
And we want them to actually be spammable. That's a part of the identity of the powered armor. You can do it as a bonus action. And we're only costing you 1 charge to do each of these things. Typically, when something only costs 1 charge in one of these items, meaning, again, you can just do it over and over again, usually you'll notice in our magic items that those effects that can be spammed tend to be 1st or 2nd level effects. And so when I'm mathing these effects, I'm going to want them to fall within a 1st and 2nd level range when it comes to spells. Now you'll notice I keep referring to spells, even though none of these effects are spells. The reason for that is almost all of our benchmarking in the game for how much damage something does, the conditions it imposes, the defensive abilities it has, the healing potency that something has, all of that is done in reference to spells. Spells is sort of a fantastic place to go to look at whenever you're building something, even if it's not a spell, to get a sense of how powerful is this thing. And so you compare the thing to spells. Now, the DMG makes that easy for you to do by, on the facing page to creating a magic item, there is a table called spell damage, which gives you the typical amount of damage that a spell will deal versus 1 target or multiple targets at the different spell levels. We also have a note that tells you can use the exact same table for healing 1 target or multiple targets. Now this table assumes when it comes to spell damage that the effect that's dealing this damage is going to deal damage, is going to at least deal half damage if a person succeeds on their saving throw.
Okay.
If the damage is delivered without a save, where a person still is going to take half the damage on a successful save, instead it's like an attack roll where if you miss it does nothing at all, then these numbers can all go up by 25%. Now, if you compare these numbers to the spells in the player's handbook, you will notice there are spells in the player's handbook that deal more damage than what's here in this table.
Yes.
That's because we're using our spreadsheet whenever we build our books, whether it's our monsters, our magic items, or our spells. Spreadsheet allows us to be more precise, which allows us to push numbers a bit higher. This table in the DMG we built to sort of be foolproof, where if you go by these numbers, you're almost never going to create something that's too busted. And because this is about teaching all of you watching this how you can do this yourself, and you don't have access to our proprietary spreadsheet, I'm leaning on the DMG tables because then you can use these tables and do this work yourself at home, and it's going to get you close enough. It can be very easy as a game designer to get hung up on what I think of as false precision, thinking of, oh my God, because this is 2 damage off, I've blown it. No. Our game is designed to allow pretty big swings when it comes to damage, healing, and whatnot. So a difference of 1 or 2, especially when it comes to damage output, is not going to cause the game to, come crumbling down and, oh my God, Dungeons and Dragons is destroyed. It's resilient. Your design is resilient. You can rely on these tables. So that preamble. It turns out, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, this is purely because in my career at Wizards of the Coast, I have developed thousands of game elements for Dungeons and Dragons
Yes.
for for 3rd edition, 4th edition, and 5th edition.
I assume you have a feel for things at
Yes.
this
So,
point.
so I actually was laughing at my desk when I looked at these to see, all right, did the numbers I just threw out, were they correct? And sure enough, they're exactly correct. And for many of you, you know, if you've done anything a whole bunch in your life, you will often get an instinct for it. And this is actually why practice is so important. Just keep doing it. You'll get it wrong at first, but the more you do it, if you're conscientious, you learn from your mistakes, you'll start internalizing these things too. So let's look real quick at emit force field. This is one of the things we need to math. We wanted to make sure that we are giving out an appropriate number of temporary hit points for the effect that we have. So remember I said that these are spammable. We are costing you only 1 charge.
Yes.
So we're going to want them to be a 1st or 2nd level spell effect. So we take a look at the spell damage table in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and for a single target spell, we are looking at output of roughly on average 11, whether it's damage or healing. Now, and again, I say roughly 11. So we here have, we have 5 plus 2d6. The average result of 2d6 is 7, which gives us 12.
So we're in the ballpark.
We're in the
close.
ballpark. That is, for D&D's sake, we hit the target.
All right.
So we got it. So that is a good amount of temporary hit points to spam. It does the job that we talked about and that you mentioned earlier of at least sort of doubling your money.
Yes.
Oh, well, at least you get your money back if
Right.
you're burning hit points on this. And it has a good chance of doubling your money unless you have a terrible roll on those 2d6.
Which could happen, but
Yeah.
hey, that's the fun of the dice.
And the beauty of temporary hit points, of course, is they go on top of your regular hit points.
Right.
So they can often be really saucy in a particular circumstance. All right, now let's look at the firearm mounted laser. We look at our spell damage table, and I'm looking at 1st level. And again, single target on average, 11 damage. Multiple targets on average, 7 damage. I'm going to say that this arm-mounted laser doing 7 damage is right on target because even though this is a single target effect, and this is where the balance gets a little tricky. Remember, this is a bonus action.
Right.
And it is on top of other damage you are potentially doing. And this is not a bonus action spell, so it's also not locking you then into the rule on bonus action spellcasting. So this is effectively a part of a multi-target damage effect because the rest of the damage is coming from your action.
Yes.
This bonus action is on top of that. And so I'd say 2d6 as a bit of free damage, that's just right.
Okay.
Radiant damage is nice because it's going to bypass a lot of creatures' resistances. This is not going to make anyone, write home about how much damage they did, but it's a nice little sprinkle on top.
Which is what we want. It's
Yeah.
not just a suit of armor. It's a cool suit of armor.
Yeah.
It does a few extra things.
Yeah, and being able to just suddenly blast people 120 feet away and do so without disadvantage. That was one reason why I wanted to cut the lower range.
Yes.
To basically make it so that this crazy high-tech power armor, it doesn't have essentially drop-off as a result of extended range.
Right.
But the laser just vanishes once you go past its maximum range.
It's dissipating in the air.
Yeah. So it turns out if you're using this spell damage table and you take these factors into account, we're good. Now, that said, playtesting is the ultimate way to verify.
Yes.
So we say that now. When I say we're good, I mean we're good to go to the next step. And the next step is some thorough playtesting, which we're going to get through Extra Life.
Yes.
And people will then tell us if these numbers, which our tables say are a good starting point, if they feel good. And then if they don't feel good, what we do is we look at ways to adjust up or down without breaking the item. That could be, for instance, people say, I just want it to deal more damage. In which case, we might say, okay, sure. And how we're going to make it deal more damage is we'll charge more charges. Right now, part of the thing is everything costs one charge, and it's all spammable. The message we might get is, well, maybe some of this shouldn't be as spammable, but be juicier. And in this case of the firearm mounted laser, juicier means more damage. But overall, we are in good shape to move to the next step.
So we like the language now. We like the math now. You had one more about the rarity.
The rarity. All right. So a multi-property magic item like this is complex because we can't. If we go to the magic item power by rarity table in the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is a good way of figuring out what is the rarity of this item, this table gives us different answers. So the powered armor gives you a +1 bonus to AC. Well, if we take a look at the magic item power by rarity table, we see that +1 means the item is at least uncommon. Now, that's not enough, though, because another piece of this work is comparing to existing items.
Right.
So you'll see that if you compare to existing items, and we'll go to the super simple +1 weapon, you'll see that the +1 weapon with that bonus of +1 is indeed uncommon. So it snaps to this table exactly. But here's where things get trickier.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's always more. If you take a look at +1 armor,
yes,
you'd think, oh, that will also be uncommon. It's not. It's rare. Because we discovered in our playtesting that having higher defense was more valuable than having higher accuracy. And so what that now means is, because anytime you're designing for D&D, you're not designing in a vacuum. You're designing something to stand alongside everything else. And which means this powered armor, simply because of its +1 bonus to AC, and because of where +1 armor is, it means its rarity must be at least rare.
Okay.
So we're not up to legendary yet.
But we're getting close. We're walking there.
Yeah, we suddenly jumped up from uncommon to rare. All right, next, this baby gives us an increase potentially to our strength.
Right.
So let's now take a look at the Gauntlets of Ogre power. These give you a strength of 19. The powered armor gives you a strength of 18. Exact same modifier, effectively the same thing. The Gauntlets of Ogre power are uncommon.
Okay.
And they require attunement. Now, you're also getting advantage on some of your saving throws.
Yes.
And you are also getting all of these other capabilities. So anytime you take two items that are likely to require attunement, and it turns out that the armor, +1 armor, does not require attunement, but the Gauntlets of Ogre power do. However, if you look at our other armor in the game that gives you abilities beyond a +1, those also require attunement. So almost any time you create an item that is basically fusing multiple items that require attunement, I bump up rarity.
Okay.
Because you're basically doing an end run around the attunement limitation. Because the game assumes you're going to have only 3 items that you are attuned to, at most. And so suddenly, when you start fusing all these things that normally you need multiple different items for, that's another way to bump up the rarity. So simply by virtue of the fact that we're doing that, we're fusing together multiple items that require attunement, we've just bumped up The rarity again.
We were at the threshold. We were already at rare.
Rare, and now we're up to very,
Very
rare.
rare. Yes.
Okay. Now we take a look at these abilities. Gaining dark vision is second level effect, roughly. Being able to breathe in any environment, that's a third level effect that we're allowing you to do. Being able to translate anything, that's a first level effect. Having a 120-foot spammable bonus action. Now, of course, you're going to run out of charges. That is a first-ish level effect. Now, getting a fly speed, it's a low fly speed.
But you can still fly.
But this is edging up toward this is between a second and third level effect. And then the force field, this is roughly first level effect.
So I'm hearing first, third, second. I might have missed one.
Yes.
But we've got multiple first level effects. We've got a second level effect. We have multiple third level effects.
Yes. So what this tells me is this item is actually on the threshold between very rare and legendary. And playtesting is really going to tell us if we chose correctly. To really drive it home that it's legendary, like I could right now just say the way to ensure it's legendary is bump the bonus to AC to +2 and we're done. And it's like, yep, legendary with all these other trimmings thrown in.
Yes, but that seems more precarious than the rarity status to me.
And I think legendary right now, it's a good call when you look at, we were already up to very rare, and then you throw in all this versatility.
Right.
Legendary, also combine it with the story.
Yes.
That we don't want many of these to be in existence.
No.
I'd say we're going to play test it at legendary.
Okay, so we have this out with playtesting groups right now. We've been getting great feedback, but we'll sort of emphasize taking a look at the powered armor, particularly with this new math built in, particularly at this rarity level. We'll gather some feedback and collate accordingly. All said and done, I did want to reiterate again, this was extremely valuable for me personally to go through the process. This is also, I believe, valuable for the adventure we're looking to put out. We're trying to make it the best we can to give it the best value for your donation. So I wanted to thank you for taking the time to go through this exercise.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has been. And for the viewers as well, I believe this has been entertaining and enlightening. And so we planned, we're going to be doing this a bit more in future days to kind of go through the design process in this way. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, same here.
I am going to be, I'm going to be running out of this room in mere moments for daycare pickup. Always, always the time crunch. But I did mention in the last live stream that we did have a few questions that we wanted to make sure to address. If we don't, we have them collected. We won't get them through nearly all of them this time, but I did want to end perhaps on just a random question that you, the viewers, had. There's a few I'll bypass for extra life, but if we look down into anything going on from spells or magic or general, was there any that caught your eye that you might want to address at the moment?
All right. One of the questions we got is, why are the new weapons that are introduced in Waterdeep Dragon Heist not given equipment descriptions so players can get them? For example, the oversized longbow and the poisonous pistol. That's very intentional. Something that we mentioned in the introduction of the monster manual is that monsters will often have specialized equipment that is not really there unless the DM wants it to be for players to scavenge after a battle.
Yes.
Also, we are very purposefully fuzzy on what is causing, say, that pistol to be poisonous. It might not actually be a property of the pistol. It might be magic that is caused by the drow who is wielding it, or whatever the item is. Sometimes there is something special about it in the hands of the person wielding it.
Right.
Monster stat blocks are not meant to be the source of treasure. And I get, particularly for anyone who has DM'd past editions, where sometimes stat blocks would have equipment sections, and there was this idea that all that equipment would like spill out onto the floor when a creature died. That is not our assumption in 5th edition. I mean, you'll notice there is no equipment section in a monster except for the unusual monster that has a special equipment section where we feel we need to say something about a particular magic item they're wielding, what have you. But most of the time, the items are really there just as a feature of the creature. And then if the DM wants that stuff to be lootable, the DM certainly can make it lootable. But again, none of it has been designed with the idea that it's going to dump out of the monster and then you haul it off.
I loot the monster's bite.
Right. So, and DMs, if you're wondering, well, okay, my players fought this creature with this pistol.
Yes.
And they are naturally curious about it.
Of course.
But DM, if you don't want to be bothered letting this thing loose in your campaign, you can say, when they get it, it's broken, it's out of ammo, something happened to it in the process of the fight. But if you're comfortable letting it loose in the game, you can use the monster's stats as an indicator for how it might work. Remember, though, particularly with a weapon, if you give that special weapon to one of your players, don't include the monster's proficiency bonus in the attack bonus that you might give to the player, and also don't include the monster's ability score bonus, which means most of the time a weapon that you loot from a monster will have no bonus to hit, and instead just the player character will use their normal bonus to hit.
Yes.
And the damage normally will not have any kind of modifier to it inherent to the weapon. Instead, it will use the appropriate ability modifier of the player character, either their strength modifier for a melee weapon or their dexterity modifier for a ranged weapon.
All right. Well, there you go. So again, we have a whole list of questions that you asked. We'd love to invite Jeremy back to the Dragon Plus live stream at a regular time when you're back from vacation and we're back from TwitchCon. Maybe we'll go through a whole bunch of questions and kind of tear through those. So
that'd be great.
In the meantime, I'm going to steal this. I don't know if we've got it on the table. We've got a Art and Arcana, some new D&D stickers that come out. I am going to shamelessly plug my Extra Life page. We'll have those up as donation rewards if you help me build my character at a certain amount. But in the meantime, look for more information on the adventure we're putting together in the coming days. And again, thanks to Jeremy for helping to further the design process.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we will be back on our regular time Tuesdays next week. So we'll see everyone then. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Bye, everyone.